What if history's fiercest general never fought the battle everyone thought he was preparing for? The world believed Patton was disgraced, sidelined for losing his temper. German commanders watched his every move, certain he'd lead the main invasion. A phantom army appeared in England, complete with tanks, aircraft, and entire divisions that didn't exist. Hitler refused to move his strongest forces even as Allied troops stormed Normandy's beaches. Double agents whispered secrets that would change the course of the war. Patton's greatest victory wasn't won with bullets, it was won with lies. Decoy leadership. In 1944, General George Patton received orders that confused everyone around him. He was told to lead an army, but this army didn't actually exist. The Allies appointed him commander of the 1st United States Army Group, known as FUSAG. On paper, it looked like a powerful fighting force with thousands of soldiers, tanks, and aircraft, but in reality, it was completely fake. Not a single real soldier served under his command. This wasn't a punishment or mistake. It was part of a brilliant plan called Operation Fortitude South. The Allies needed someone the Germans feared and respected to make the lie believable. Patton fit perfectly. His job wasn't to fight, it was to fool the enemy into thinking a massive invasion was coming from the wrong place. But why would the Allies risk their best general on a trick? And how could a fake army convince anyone? The answer would change the entire war. What made this fake army so convincing that even Hitler believed it? German respect. The Germans had studied every Allied general carefully. They knew their tactics, their personalities, and their strengths. But one name stood out above all others: George S. Patton. German intelligence considered him the most dangerous and aggressive commander the Allies had. They believed he was a military genius who would lead any major attack. The Allies knew this. They understood that the Germans would never ignore Patton or think he was unimportant. That's exactly why they chose him for this deception mission. The logic was simple but brilliant. If Patton was commanding an army, the Germans would assume that army was preparing for the main invasion. They couldn't imagine the Allies would waste their best general on anything less than the most important operation. This psychological advantage made the entire plan work. The Germans respected Patton so much that they fell right into the trap. But respect alone wasn't enough. Patton had to be seen. Public presence. Patton didn't hide. In fact, he did the exact opposite. He made sure the Germans saw him everywhere. He toured camps in southeast England, especially around Kent, the area closest to France. He inspected troops, gave speeches, and posed for photographs. German spies and reconnaissance planes watched his every move. They reported back that Patton was preparing something big. The location mattered too. Kent sat directly across from Pas de Calais, the narrowest part of the English Channel. It was the shortest route to France, and the Germans believed that's where the invasion would come. Every time Patton appeared in public, it reinforced that belief. He played his role perfectly, acting like a general preparing for the biggest battle of his life. But behind the scenes, the real invasion was being planned somewhere else entirely. The question remained, how do you make a fake army look real? The answer involved rubber, wood, and pure creativity. Physical decoys. The Ghost Army needed equipment, so the Allies built it out of rubber and wood. Engineers created inflatable tanks that looked completely real from the air. They made dummy aircraft from plywood and canvas. Fake landing craft were placed in harbors, waiting for an invasion that would never come. These weren't cheap toys. They were carefully designed to fool German reconnaissance planes flying overhead. From high altitude, cameras couldn't tell the difference between a real tank and an inflatable one. The decoys were positioned strategically across fields and near coastlines where German pilots would spot them. Teams moved them regularly to suggest troop movements and preparations. The effect was stunning. German intelligence reported seeing massive military buildup in southeast England. They counted tanks, planes, and ships, none of which actually existed. This physical deception formed the backbone of the entire operation. But objects alone couldn't fool everyone.
They needed to make the army sound real, too. Fake infrastructure. Creating fake weapons wasn't enough. The Allies needed to build an entire fake world around Patton's phantom army. Construction crews erected empty tent cities that stretched across the English countryside. They looked like military camps from above, complete with pathways, supply areas, and vehicle parks. Mock hospitals appeared, suggesting the Allies were preparing for casualties. Dummy oil storage facilities were constructed near ports, implying huge fuel reserves for tanks and aircraft. Even fake headquarters buildings were set up. Every detail mattered. The camps had to look lived in and active. Workers created tire tracks in mud, hung laundry on lines, and placed equipment in patterns that matched real military operations. German spy planes photographed everything. Their analysts studied the images and concluded that a massive force was gathering. The infrastructure told a complete story. An army was preparing to launch the largest invasion in history. But there was still one missing piece. Silence would give away the secret. Radio deception. Real armies communicate constantly. Orders go out, supplies get requested, units report their positions. If Patton's fake army stayed silent, the Germans would know something was wrong. So the Allies created an entire radio network for an army that didn't exist. Specialized signal units transmitted thousands of fake messages every day. They mimicked the normal radio traffic of a 30,000-man division. Supply officers requested fuel and ammunition. Unit commanders reported troop movements. Headquarters issued tactical orders. Everything sounded completely authentic. The Germans were listening. Their intelligence teams intercepted and decoded these transmissions. The messages confirmed what their spy planes showed. A huge military force was gathering under Patton's command. The radio deception was so detailed that German analysts could track individual units and predict their movements. They never suspected it was all fiction. But the Allies added one final layer to seal the deception. They needed someone on the inside to confirm the lie. Human intelligence. The most powerful weapon wasn't rubber tanks or radio signals. It was a Spanish man named Juan Pujol Garcia. The British called him Garbo. He was a double agent who the Germans trusted completely. They believed he was their spy inside England, feeding them valuable intelligence. In reality, he worked for the Allies. Garbo sent carefully crafted reports to German intelligence. He confirmed that Patton was commanding a massive force. He described seeing troops, equipment, and preparations for invasion. He reported that the real attack would hit Pas-de-Calais, not Normandy. Most importantly, he warned that the Normandy landings were just a diversion, a trick to pull German forces away from where Patton would strike. The Germans believed every word. His information matched what their spy planes photographed and their radio operators heard. Everything fit together perfectly. Garbo's lies combined with the physical deceptions created an unshakable belief in German high command. Now came the ultimate test. Would Hitler take the bait?
The Pas-de-Calais ruse. Adolf Hitler studied the intelligence reports. Everything pointed to one conclusion. The Allies would invade at Pas-de-Calais. The evidence seemed overwhelming. Patton, their best general, was positioned directly across from Pas-de-Calais. Massive forces were gathered in southeast England. Radio traffic indicated final preparations. Trusted spies confirmed the target. Hitler made his decision. He would keep his strongest forces at Pas-de-Calais, waiting for Patton's attack. He positioned the powerful 15th Army along that coast, ready to crush the invasion. Meanwhile, the actual Allied plan targeted Normandy, hundreds of miles away. On June 6, 1944, thousands of Allied soldiers stormed Normandy's beaches. The fighting was fierce and desperate. American, British, and Canadian troops faced heavy German resistance. But Hitler didn't send reinforcements. He still believed Normandy was a diversion. He waited for Patton's real invasion at Pas-de-Calais. How long could the lie hold? Delayed response. Days passed after D-Day, then weeks. Allied forces fought to expand their foothold in Normandy.
They desperately needed time to build up their strength before German reinforcements arrived. Hitler's 15th Army remained at Pas-de-Calais, the most powerful German force in France, sitting idle. They waited for Patton. For 7 full weeks, Hitler refused to move them. He remained convinced the real invasion was still coming. His commanders begged him to send reinforcements to Normandy, but he wouldn't listen. The intelligence was too convincing. Patton's phantom army still appeared on reconnaissance photos. Radio signals continued. Garbo kept sending reports that the main attack was imminent. Those 7 weeks changed everything. The delay gave Allied forces time to establish secure beachheads, land more troops, and begin pushing inland. By the time Hitler finally realized the truth, it was too late. The Allies had secured their foothold in Europe. One question remained: when would Patton finally fight for real? Victory at Normandy. The deception worked beyond anyone's wildest hopes. Hitler's hesitation prevented German reinforcements from reaching Normandy when they could have made a difference. Allied forces secured the beaches, then pushed deeper into France. The German army, split and confused, couldn't mount an effective defense.
Patton remained in his decoy role until July 1944. Only then did he receive command of a real army, the U.S. Third Army. He finally led troops into battle during the liberation of France, fighting with the aggression and skill the Germans had always feared. The Ghost Army had completed its mission. The phantom force that never existed had helped win the war's most critical battle. Patton's greatest victory wasn't fought with tanks or soldiers. It was won with inflatable rubber, fake radio signals, and carefully crafted lies. The deception saved thousands of Allied lives and changed the course of history. Sometimes the best weapon isn't a gun. It's a perfectly executed trick.
Patton's role in D-Day deception explained. A masterclass in wartime strategy. How Patton fooled Hitler before Normandy remains one of history's greatest tricks. Patton's fake army, Operation Fortitude, changed the entire invasion's outcome. This secret Patton decoy D-Day invasion saved countless lives. The Patton D-Day deception proved that sometimes the greatest generals win without firing a shot. Operation Fortitude, Patton's leadership made the impossible believable. Patton's Ghost Army existed only in enemy minds, yet it defeated real divisions. Why Patton sidelined D-Day now makes perfect sense. His absence from Normandy was his most brilliant presence. The Phantom Commander delivered victory through pure deception.